Greetings ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mexi here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos once again. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic the Hedgehog, or some people call it Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 for the Xbox 360/PlayStation 3. So last time, we've essentially finished up everything in Sonic's story. Not only do we somehow manage able to experience the final stage in Sonic's story, which as it turns out it was Aquatic Base, and in addition to that, we also kicked Dr. Eggman's butt yet again, but this time we somehow defeated Egg Wyvern. And overall, that was actually an alright experience, despite the fact that with this luck-based element, something to do with the forms of this particular falling debris, but that's besides the point. And today, for this video, is about the fact that, oh, and also not to mention though, we somehow managed able to brought ourselves the final upgrade for Sonic. Now as it turns out, we somehow brought the Purple Gem, which, overall, that particular ability with these infinite jumps and while we're in small form, that is definitely the most broken gem in the entire game. So that's besides the point. So today, for this video, is about the fact that we are going to be able to move on to the next story. Now as it turns out, according to the forms of the actual thumbnail for this, or specifically the title of this, is that we're going to be jump right into Shadow Story next. Now, originally I was going to able to jump right into Silver Story next, but I'll save him for last, because relatively speaking though, we'll explain more about that in a moment. So let's begin Shadow Story.
Transmission from HQ. There's an SOS coming from Dr. Eggman's base. Our last communication with our agent was 26 hours ago. We expect an immediate rescue. Shadow the Hedgehog.
Understood. Initiating the mission now.
Now, unlike in Sonic's story, that basically we start the actual story up in Journey Forms of the Hub World, in Shadow Story, and same plus with Silver Story, which we'll get to now in a moment, actually starts off you as you're able to begin the first stage immediately. So as a result, the first stage we're going to be jump right into in Shadow Story, which, as it turns out, we are going into White Acropolis, to able to sneak into Dr. Eggman's base. So, relatively speaking though, this is how Shadow plays out to be in this game. Well, he plays kind of similar to Sonic, except the fact that there's a lot of emphasis on combat involved. So, relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that you do realize that his speed is also being reduced, so make it as a result about the fact that Shadow is much slower than he forms of how it does it not only in Sonic Adventure 2, but also in Journey Forms of Sonic Heroes, and even Shadow the Hedgehog, despite the fact that Shadow the Hedgehog actually has some very slippery controls. But relatively speaking, when it comes to the forms of this game in general, that's how he moves a little bit more slower than he forms of in the previous games, which I'm not terribly fond of, but sometimes though about the fact that it's usually kind of feels a bit of a bummer that Shadow's no longer the fastest thing alive. Same applies to Sonic as well, but that's besides the point. So, anyways, a few things we want to explain for this point today is that, well, today's date of course is the 28th of February today, in some cases in 2024 today, and tomorrow, that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to be releasing tomorrow for the PlayStation 5. So, that makes things a lot more exciting, especially concerning for the fact that we've been waiting for that particular sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake for quite some time at this rate, after about 4 years ago, since when Final Fantasy VII Remake did originally came out on the PlayStation 4, whilst Journey Forms have been later on, sometime in 2021, that we've actually got ourselves the PlayStation 5 version with some additional content here and there, but that's besides the point. So yeah, as you can tell, the huge emphasis on this entire gameplay style for Shadow, well, as I mentioned this before, he plays kind of like Sonic, except the fact that, well, usually he moves much more slower, and most of these levels in Shadow Story is going to be super duper lengthy, mainly due to the combat-oriented gameplay style. And not only that though, is about the fact that, well, relatively speaking though, Shadow can no longer perform a spin dash ability ever since in Journey forms of, well, let's just say ever since in Sonic Adventure 2, as well as Shadow the Hedgehog, despite the fact that you have to stand completely still in Shadow the Hedgehog or something like that. So, and as it turns out, we immediately switch over to Rouge the Bat right here, in some cases yet another playable character in this game in particular. So as a result, she plays pretty similar to the forms of how it does it for Knuckles, except the fact that much like Tails, she managed to use bombs just like Tails. Except the fact that unlike Tails though, that he can only use dummy ring bombs, whilst for Rouge though, she can only decide able to perform 2 different attributes when it comes to using bombs. Like, for instance, you can either decide able to climb onto walls and stuff like that, while placing the bomb onto that specific wall or scenery, or in some cases boundaries or something, or you can able to actually toss multiple bombs until you're able to deal the amount of damage to certain enemies. And unfortunately though, similar to Knuckles though, she just sometimes manages to stuck on walls. So yeah, as a result, we'll explain more about that if we get on to the next stage coming up. So, and also, ever since any forms have been Shadow the Hedgehog, Shadow once again utilizes vehicles. However, he does have 4 this time around, and you have to use them in any different points. So let's talk about them. Like, the first vehicle right here is the buggy, where you can able to shoot missiles. You can only shoot 2 missiles at a time, and relatively speaking, I was about the fact that, well, in this particular stage right here, at least specifically in the end anyway, as you can tell, of what the game tells us we're supposed to do, is that we need to use the buggy for the majority of this section, because in order to able to progress, or specifically finish the level, basically we have to destroy all 5 of those searchlights. However, you can't deal with the actual homing attack or anything, you have to use the buggy, which despite the fact that the game doesn't tell you of what you're supposed to do with it. And that's the reason why that Stuart actually has a bit of a terrible time experiencing this, at least specifically when he first got there, and my god, he just got confused, especially concerning for the fact that he doesn't have any clue of what on earth are we supposed to do for this point. At least, ironically enough, I already know what to do for this, but again, first impressions is just pretty terrible, all things considered. Well, even then, no, you probably get the idea for this point. I will admit, though, the vehicles in this game is actually a lot better than the blend vehicles in the Shadow game, but you do realize about the fact that that particular buggy can tip over. So, yeah, because of that, though, thanks to the forms of Havoc's physics engine, so this means about the fact that it's just trying to make things a little bit more ultra-realism kind of physics to work with. So, yeah, you get the idea for this point. So, anyway, so once you decide able to destroy all 5 of these searchlights, obviously the end of the level should be able to signify as just when the actual game freezes for a moment, and then actually turns out it will just go into the next transition, that basically the stage is done. So, yep, everything's all good to go. But then again though, sometimes I will admit though, is about the fact that whenever I first got there, when I first played this on the Xbox 360 version, I have no idea what the heck am I supposed to do. Oh, are you kidding me? I was so close to getting S! I should probably deal with some more enemies, don't I? Well, especially noticeable because concerning if you deal with much more enemies, then you should able to guarantee to get yourself some good amount of points, but I just couldn't be bothered most of the time, especially concerning for the fact I just want to complete the stages as normal. So either way though, that pretty much takes care of the forms of White Acropolis, so yeah, nothing else to say about this stage. It's just about the fact that, well, we just have to destroy a certain amount of things, including the searchlights at the end, so that's all.
Don't you want to know what this is?
My assignment was to rescue you, nothing more.
Fine. With you, it's always business. It seems they don't want us to leave.
Let's get this over with.
And something tells me we will come across into the first boss in Shadow's story, which is none other than the Cerberus. Yes, we've met again, Cerberus, despite the fact that, you know, the actual logic side of things doesn't make sense, because yet again, though, I just really wish if it does have 3 heads instead of just 1, but I suppose beggars can be choosers, I guess. So obviously the entire battle plays pretty much exactly like the forms of how it does it since in Sonic's story, except the fact that the biggest difference is this time is that obviously it does manage to take place in a different environment, usually for the snowy Dr. Eggman's space environment, and second of all is that you do realize about the fact that during the forms of Sonic's story, you can technically able to take down Cerberus quickly enough by utilizing with the forms of those statues that you can able to do double damage. However, those statues are completely gone in during the forms of this particular variant of Cerberus. So, yeah, obviously it's about the fact that the entire battle remains the same. It's just about the fact that, oh jeez, there's a lot of lag, or in some cases a slowdown is actually involved. So, yeah, as a result, it's been about 5 days ago since we've last played this game for sure. The reason being for this is because obviously we've already noticed from the start though, is that somehow we received a brand new amiibo, which I believe Coco Bandicoot has already mentioned about this ever since in Journey Bones of Klonoa Fantasy Reverie series so far. So yeah, as a result, I was super glad that I somehow finally got myself my Sora amiibo, just in case we can able to actually train him for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which technically we've already done. So, speaking of amiibos though, is about the fact that let us know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Since after all, about the fact that we're still in 2024 after all, this will mark the 10-year anniversary of the existence of amiibo. So, let me know in the comments down below if you want me to decide able to do the entire amiibo collection of all things, and during at some point later on throughout the year, because obviously if you couldn't tell already, as I said this earlier, this year will mark the 10-year anniversary of the amiibo's existence. So we'll talk more details about that if some of you has obviously managed able to comment on it. So either way though, that's saying something. So anyways though, so originally though is about the fact that, oh jeez, that was really close. I almost assume I'm almost gonna get hit by Cerberus himself. So anyways, let's just go ahead and try to guide him towards the wall, and eventually we're able to turn around. Oh, that's annoying. Especially, I hate when that happened right there, especially noticeable in Shadow's variant of Cerberus right here, where basically, I will admit though right away, that sometimes about the fact that this boss battle rapper is actually really darn annoying sometimes, even when you try to play as Shadow, because he was combat eccentric. So, but even then, that pretty much takes care of the Cerberus for the second time. So, except the fact that this time we play as Shadow. So, and as you probably already know, Shadow doesn't use guns anymore like the 2005 Shadow game, but as I said before, he does still use vehicles. So, either way, S rank for the win. And that should give us some more rings, so just in case we can able to buy some items and stuff like that. Which, speaking of items though, we should probably save that particular topic of the forms of upgrades or items for Shadow until for later, because this is just the beginning after all. So yeah, once we're done with that, I'm pretty sure we'll go on to Soliana, specifically the new city portion of Soliana Hub World, because as it turns out, well, we definitely need to make our way to this specific destination we want to head into next. So that's our part of the plan.
Ah, Soliana, the city of water. It has a constitutional monarchy, you know. The primary industries are tourism and crafting precision machinery. The current sovereign is Princess Elise III.
Why does Eggman's base lead to an odd place like this?
How should I know? I just followed my orders and retrieved the item. Anyway, I have a little favor to ask of you. Could you escort me to the GUN rendezvous point?
Where's the rendezvous point?
It's the ancient castle of Soliana in Kingdom Valley.
So anyway, as it turns out, we must make our way to the forms of the old castle, and I get the strong feeling that unlike in Sonic's story, thankfully we don't have to worry about the forms of 3 Trials of Soliana anytime soon, until specifically whenever we get to Silver's story, which, as a result, we're probably not going to mention about this just yet. So, yeah, anyway, so there's also another thing I want to explain about this as well, potentially, is that we've only just got about exactly 296 days to go until Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie, is going to be releasing, as it turns out. So, yeah, I'm still very excited for it, and I'm sure enough, though, it's about the fact that there's a good thing we did somehow manage able to choose Shadow next, because obviously this is going to be the year of Shadow the Hedgehog, after all, throughout the forms of 2024 as a result. So, anyways, let's buy the forms of Air Chip, which functions the same thing as what Sonic's Lightspeed Dash is all about, as well as the forms of this particular item, which appears to be... I'm not exactly sure what that's called exactly, because I didn't pay attention to what I was expecting to mention about that. So, I think what that means is that we've somehow learned the ability to able to have Chaos Snap. So because of that though, and as you can see, the actual gauge has actually already become empty at this point. Unless if we decided able to go after those specific Chaos Spheres or something like that actually attracts to you. So hopefully we should be able to actually come across into that specific item to able to fill up the entire gauge so we can able to learn the ability to use Chaos Snap. So because of that though, yeah, we must make our way to Soliana Forest yet again, except this time it somehow managed to able to show up just early on. And you can also buy the actual shop in Journey Forms at this point as well. So, either way, let's just go ahead and just try to utilize the Lightspeed Dash onto this part, while simply just able to, like, I have no idea what's going on right here. It's almost like, it kind of feels like, you're actually getting dragged by the forms of this grappling hook or something for that particular Lightspeed Dash's physics. So, but either way, let's just go ahead and, oh jeez, the actual movement is so slow, especially noticeable concerning for the fact that, well, usually if we get to the, Silver as a playable character, that playing this particular, segment right here is so awful because of this hub world. Like, it's so gosh darn big, and it's also very spacious. Like, whoever thought that was a good idea? Anyways, let's, make our way to this point right here. Although, by the way, something's worth noting for, I really can't be bothered able to actually tackle through every single town missions in Shadow's story, mainly because they are entirely pointless. Although, I will admit though, there are some town missions that we have to deal with at some point. So either way, it looks like we've made our way to Kingdom Valley, so as a result, it did somehow showed up really early on in Shadow's story, which might guess it will be a little bit of a bad thing for my part, because as far as I can definitely tell right from the start though, like I mentioned this before, since in Sonic's story, Kingdom Valley is not only the longest level in the game, but it's also the hardest stage in the entire game. So anyway, let's go ahead and head on to Kingdom Valley, but this time with Shadow, and we must head to the recovery point. So yeah, that's the main objective in this level. And as soon as we're able to actually get into the first section of the stage, we somehow meet up with the forms of yet another vehicle, and this time what appears to be the actual glider. And as a result, you can only shoot 2 missiles at a time, similar to the buggy. However, it's all automated. So because of that though, unless if you try to hold down the X button or the A button if you ever played the Xbox 360 version, you can able to actually accelerate. So that's something worth noting for. Here's a fun fact for you. If those of you have ever seen Clement J64 review of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, as it turns out, you can able to actually beat this entire section by doing absolutely nothing, which as a result, it is very hilarious, and especially noticeable, it's kind of like, well, yeah, you can totally see why about the fact that it almost reminds me like a Mario Party kind of syndrome. But either way, so now we've actually done with that, and we're about to be moving on to the next segment. I believe something tells me we must go for 3 segments, as opposed to 4, from the likes of Sonic's story, so at the very least that's that. Or at least there's one positive thing I can probably say about it, is that thankfully Shadow does not go into Mark Speed sections, thankfully, so Because my god, if Shadow goes into Mark Speed section just like that, that'll make the entire game a lot more frustrating than ever will be. So, anyway, so we've once again taken control of Rouge once again, except now, we are able to find all 3 keys throughout the area. Sound familiar? Well, there is no radar this time around though, or any hints. You'll be completely blind while looking for those keys. Although, thankfully though, if you manage to replay for this stage quite an amount of times, basically though, all these keys are in the exact same place. So if you know what you're doing, no big deal. So, I think the first 2 keys are pretty obvious, because one of them is actually hiding the forms of that specific cage right there, blocked by the forms of specific robots, or enemies to be more specifically, and the other one was inside a blue box. However, the third key will definitely test of how long this stage decides to able to give you some troublesome at points. It's inside a tower. Like, you see what I mean whenever we're able to obtain the second key first. So, yeah, as a result, if you couldn't tell already, yeah, similar to the forms of Knuckles, sometimes though, Rouge, the bat, gets stuck on walls very easily, especially concerning for the fact that they cannot get off the walls most of the time. Like, that is stupidly annoying, especially concerning for the fact that if you want to keep things moving, well, obviously you have to able to put up with this particular bad programming involved. So, either way, let's just go and deal with this enemy right here, so we can able to dish out the forms of that specific robot, and grab the second key, and now we need to backtrack for a bit. See, I just really wish if it does have a radar system, just like in Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, with those treasure hunting levels, but as I said before, you'll be completely blind while looking for those keys. But, after we're done with this particular segment though, I will admit though right away, we might as well able to come across into the most annoying section in the entire stage, specifically in Shadow Story. And that, I think something tells me though, is about the fact that some people complain about is the actual god-awful camera perspective. So because of that though, yeah, you see that right there with the stained glass window? Well, we have to use the bomb to shatter it, and there you were able to find the third and final key. So, yeah, how the heck am I supposed to know? Like, imagine this, right? Again, for those first impressions, it's just pretty bad to begin with. And as a result, that whenever I first got there on the Xbox 360 version, for the life of me, I can never try to able to figure this out for myself. But either way, now we're done with that, now we go on to the forms of yet another vehicle we can able to take a ride on, and this time what appears to be the hovercraft. And this thing also tips over. Because of that though, yeah, you start able to be very careful with this. And this part right there is absolutely stupid. Like, for instance, for example, is about the fact that we need to able to take control of the hovercraft, as be expected. However, you can able to reverse backwards for a little bit, just in case, as you can tell, this particular section has tons of towers. So, if you accidentally managed able to shoot the actual tower, what happens was, the tower decides to crumble, and guess what happens? If you get in contact with the falsely crumbling towers, you die instantly. And you know what's the worst part about this? Is the stupid camera. So it doesn't give you enough time to able to actually give you a good perspective, then getting blindsided like one too many times. Like, believe me, whenever I first got there as well, I hated this section of the stage when I first played this game. And, potentially speaking though, it's Shadow's second stage. So, have you heard of scaling the difficulty yet? Like, Kingdom Valley is by far one of the hardest levels in the game, while compared to everything else. So, yeah, I can totally see why it's about the fact that they just somehow managed able to get pretty scurry when it comes to difficulty spike. Like, potentially speaking though, that is definitely a not great sign. Especially, again, for your first impressions, it's just pretty bad to begin with. Like, for instance, it's just with the stupid, crumbling towers gimmick, and because of that though, you will die automatically, and because of that though, yeah, this section blows. But anyway, let's just go ahead and, destroy that particular tower right there and grab the one up in the process, so that way we should able to rank up as more lives. I don't think I can probably able to try to rank up as many of those extra lives compared to Sonic's story, but at least I'll try my best able to keep on farming some more of those extra lives as I can. Well, depending on the forms of specific level gimmicks, that just sometimes feels a bit mixed bag for my eyes, but either way though, that's all I can really think about it. What the heck is up with that? I almost assumed that those boxes or certain enemies will attempt to appear, but it seems it feels kind of inconsistent with all these specific pop-up moments, so Anyway, so as you probably already know, is about the fact that yesterday that marks the Pokemon Presents has already been addressed. However, I was originally trying to able to mention more about that when it comes to specific announcements they do bring for Pokemon Presents in journey forms of Pokemon Day since yesterday. Unfortunately, though, that's gonna be wait for a while, especially concerning for the fact I just want to talk about the Forms of Shadows gameplay style in Sonic 06, so that's all I can really say about that, I guess. That could be also applies for other news articles that's been recently happened throughout the forms of couple of days ago. But either way, let's not get about ourselves at this point. So either way. So there's also another thing I want to classify for mentioning about this as well. Is that, as you already know, is about the fact that when it comes to this another upcoming compilation game called Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, will obviously feature the classic versions of Star Wars Battlefront games, which is obviously Star Wars Battlefront released in 2004 and Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out in 2005. And not only does it going to be able to be releasing on Nintendo Switch at some point on 14th of March, but as it turns out it's also going to be releasing on multiple platforms as well, including PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, and finally PC via Steam. So yeah, that seems kind of a logical side of things though. And also, get this, is that it will feature restored online play for up to 64 players. So yeah, that's pretty insane. Especially compared to the forms of how it does in Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, that does feature 16 players throughout the forms of the online aspect if you decide to play through party games and stuff like that. So at least that was what I was expecting for this point, but either way. And as far as I did somehow manage to find out that the amount of gigabyte storage you might able to expect when it comes to Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, obviously it will cost about 25 gigabytes, at least specifically on the Switch version from what I found out. So yeah, that does seem quite a lot. So potentially speaking though, I'm not exactly sure if that particular compilation will get its physical release on the Switch version, but then again, we shall wait and see what happens in due time. So anyways though, oh yeah, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well. I apologize for that particular last video of this, specifically in the end of Sonic's story, where basically, unfortunately though, we've come across into the exact same issue ever since in Sonic Frontiers, where basically we've actually come across into a copyright music in Journey Forms of the credit sequence, which as a result, that particular credits theme is actually called Sweet Dreams Acon Mix, which is actually the actual theme you might hear if you manage to finish up with Sonic's story for the first time. At least if I was assuming so anyway. Although it's kind of a shame about the fact that that music is actually turned into a copyright music, so unfortunately though, I won't be able to allow to hear it if I were you. Mainly because if I dare manage able to put that music up, it will give me a bit of a copyright strike. So because of that though, yeah, I do apologize for this point folks, especially concerning, I was trying to mention about the forms of honorable mentions when it comes to specific announcements they do bring for the, you know, recent partner showcase for Nintendo Direct, but that's besides the point. So, and also as it turns out, it's about the fact that we've only got about 2 more days to go until we are approaching onto March. So, oh, I suppose the final thing I want to mention about this as well, yes, recently I've somehow managed to able to unlock myself Grim Sonic in Sonic Dash. So, yeah, it seems pretty worth it to me though, especially concerning for the fact that at this point in time, I think I should probably start able to take a break on playing Sonic Dash for a while, until God knows if the next character will decide able to bring out. So, but even, and no, we'll shall wait and see what happens. So, oh, and by the way, something's worth noting for, in order to able to activate the Chaos Snap, as you can tell, is that you simply press the R1 button, at least on the PlayStation 3 version, and I believe the right trigger button on the Xbox 360 version, so yeah, that's besides the point. So, there we go, and yet another S rank ever since Cerberus. I was very surprised that I somehow managed to get myself the S rank on the very first boss in Shadow Story. Well, that's just mainly because no matter what though, I was attempting to try to able to achieve that on Sonic Story, but because of the actual AI pattern decides able to functions for the Cerberus' movements. So, I suppose with that being said folks, is that we got the endings of this point right here, I'm assuming so anyway. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 in Shadow Story is that I believe, fundamentally speaking now, we're going to be jump right into the next stage immediately. So I'll let you guys enjoy a whole bunch of cutscenes, so you can probably understand why. So because of that though, yeah.
The former king of Soliana used to reside in this castle, but a major accident occurred 10 years ago, and no one's lived there since.
Accident?
I heard a prototype energy engine failed, which caused the accident. I think the name of the plan was...
The Solaris Project. It was an ambitious project, named after their eternal sun god.
Doctor!
It's been a while, my dear Rouge. And of course, Shadow. Now, if you'd be so kind as to hand back the Scepter of Darkness you took from me.
Shadow!
It's no use! Pull back! Pull back! Pull back!
What? His shadow.
Oh, how ironic fate can be. I would never have believed I would be resurrected through your shade. I thank you, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Who are you? And how do you know my name?
I'm Mephiles. Mephiles the Dark.
Are you drunk? Or are you acting like a zombie?
What? Did you forget me? I owe much to you, Shadow. Oh yes. What you gave to me, I now return to you. A one-way ticket to oblivion.
Ah!
Well, it looks like both Shadow and Rouge have been teleported into the future.
What is this place?
It seems we've been teleported to another location.
Well, let's find out where we are.
Mephiles? Who is he?
Also, I have no idea why they somehow managed to get this weird transition from color to black and white.
I'm in. I've pinpointed our location. It's... No, that's not possible. We're still in the Doctor's base, but how can that be? Wait, there's no doubt now.
So it's not where we are. It appears we've gone through time, doesn't it?
Yes, approximately 200 years. Maybe more, depending on when this database was last updated. Well, at least we know we've arrived in the future. That means this Mephiles character has the power to control time.
His power feels very similar to my own chaos control. But